All right, so our next story is titled Too Much. A career-driven woman's pursuit of Tagalog leads her to a place with too much cheese, too much winter, and no Filipinos. Please welcome Lauren Pongan.
Hey. So I've moved more than 15 times, I think, as in my adult life. And sometimes when you move, you just like know in your gut that it's the right decision. You're like, everything's aligned, things are gonna work out, this is right. And that is exactly the opposite of how I felt when I moved out of Philly for the first time. I think that's what happens when you're running from something and not towards something. And I was running from plenty. I was running from a 5-year relationship ending with someone I'd been really in love with, a job that wasn't really a good fit for me, and also just kind of like in that dumb part of your 20s where you're like, I don't know who I am, so I'll just try everything. Nothing works. The only kind of clarity I had, I'd gone on like a 5-week trip to the Philippines to visit friends and family, and the only kind of clarity I came out with after that trip and after leaving my job was that I really wanted to pursue studying Tagalog, because Tagalog is the language, one of the main languages of the Philippines, and it's my dad's first language. And I had spent my entire childhood with my family like gossiping, and so I never understood anything. So they'd be like, blah, 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 Lauren, and then look at me, and then keep talking, and I was always like, what are they saying? So this seemed like a really good time to like dive in and learn Tagalog, really like give it my all. So to study Tagalog and really be fully immersed, I did the logical thing, which was move to Wisconsin. So it turns out that all these universities around the country that have Southeast Asia centers put on a consortium in Madison, probably because it's at the geographic center of the country. It's like dirt cheap and there's nothing else there. So I moved to Madison, and I have like a wild and intense summer of, we had like 5 hours of class every day, 3 hours of homework. I'm making out with half of the people in my program alternatingly. It's like adult summer camp, but like a little academic. But one thing I didn't expect was that a lot of the people in my program, I was just like, oh, it'll be random Filipino Americans like trying to learn their language. But it was actually a ton of academics doing like really badass research. So when my program wraps up, it's like 8 weeks, and I go back to Philly. I'm like, oh, thank God I'm back in Philly. But I'm on my parents' porch in the backyard, and I'm like, okay, I've actually decided an adult thing. I want to go to grad school. And the two best programs for what I want to study are either University of Wisconsin or University of Washington. So I should move to one of those states so I can get in-state tuition, because it's like about half price, it's a discount. So I'm sitting with my parents, like trying to decide. They're like, what are you even doing? But one of my friends, who I consider to be like the smartest person, recently got rejected from the University of Washington, so I felt like that was pretty out of my league, and I already had all these connections in Wisconsin, so I was like, all right, I don't want to, but I'm just gonna move back to Wisconsin in 3 days with 2 dudes I met on Craigslist today. So I pack up my apartment in Philly. My parents are still like, oh my God, don't die. My brother brings me to this like parking lot where we rendezvous with the 2 dudes, and he like low key takes a picture of the license plate. He's like, in case your body turns up. So I get in the car with the guys. One of them, by the way, wants to listen to the entire Game of Thrones book. It's like a 20-hour drive. But as we're like cresting the hill, as we're entering Madison, Madison's the Midwest, so it's super, super flat. And I can see the Capitol building like 10 miles out. And as I see it, like I just get this sinking feeling in my gut, like, oh fuck, like what did you do? Like I pride myself on being like, I'm from Philly, I'm tough, it's fine. But then I'm like, I can't survive the Midwest. So it was actually, like, that feeling was real. It was a really tough year for me. I was running a food pantry, but I was also on food stamps because I was so broke. And I just realized really quickly that, like, I did not fit in with the culture. Everything was too much for me. Like, strong memories are, like, deep-fried, all-you-can-eat bacon night at Wando's. For a Filipino, that's super dangerous. I went there regularly. I went to the... There was like just beer. Like they didn't even have water there. It was just only beer. When I went to the grocery store, there was like a football field size aisle of just cheese, and not like fancy cheese. It was just all cheddar in like different kinds, but there's only really like 3 kinds of cheddar cheese. It's like yellow, white, like old, and not old. It was too white for me. I mean, you know, I was coming from Philly, city of brotherly love, and also the last time I had been in Madison, I was there with like all my badass Filipino Americans, and then I came back and I was like, oh my God, everyone's name is Mike, and I don't know what to do. And then the winter was endless. Like, so Madison's also an isthmus, so it's 2 lakes with this little strip of land in between, and both lakes are like, haha, got you. They freeze, and then they never melt, like for 8 months, and you're just like wearing sweaters and jackets and like just your eyes. So, and then finally, culturally, everyone was so fucking nice. I like couldn't handle it. I made friends, and I'd meet them once, and people always think I'm so mean when they meet me, but people would be like, I'd meet them one time and I'd be like, hey, whatever, and they'd be like, do you have a place to go for Christmas? You can come to my family's house. And I was just like, So, I don't know. I really did not fit in there at all. But one of the nice things was I met a really, really nice guy who dated me for 9 months as I like denied it was happening. I was like, we're just hanging out all the time. And so he was like, let's be together. And I said no and no and no for a really long time. And then eventually spring came, like finally, and the lake started to thaw. And I think like emotionally I started to thaw a little bit. And also I just was like, okay, I had applied to University of Washington and University of Wisconsin, and I was like, I need to accept the fact that like I'm gonna be here for like 2 years or something. I need to just sink in and give into this and like relax into this, give this place a chance. So I call him up and I'm like, fine, we can be together. And so really romantically, we start dating. And the next day, I check my email, and I get an email from the University of Washington that's like, you got a full ride to this master's program. And I flip the fuck out, and I call like everyone I know. It's like 3 a.m. on the East Coast. My mom's like, who died? I'm like, I'm leaving Wisconsin. So I'm overjoyed. And within a week, I have like a plane ticket out of there by the end of the month, a job lined up, like I'm out. And so, you know, over the summer, things with a really nice guy like peter out over the phone, not very surprising. And I moved to Seattle, where I find this like badass community of scholars. I like, get in sync with the Filipino community there. I'm loving the non-flatness. I go hiking all the time. And, you know, I always felt like Wisconsin really didn't challenge me very much, and I just felt like in Seattle in my program I was being asked to do a lot, and I felt like I finally like really found my niche. So I felt really at peace, and I was just like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like everything about this program is finally right. And that's how I felt until summer after my first year of my master's program, when I get another email from my school that said, congratulations, you won the FLAS Fellowship. You have another all expenses paid summer in Madison, Wisconsin.